G'day folks, Mr. Heathcote here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Great to see you all. And if you like the content, don't forget to like and subscribe and to hit the notification bell so that you always get the next video. Alright, so as we've been talking about in class, we've been doing our persuasive writing. I just wanted to put this video together to give an overview of the task and to sort of start talking about the brainstorming and the structuring that I'd like you to do. And then in a future video, we'll talk more specifically about the writing. So as a reminder, and this is all on the OneNote, but this is your next major assessment task in Year 9 English. And that the due date, I've pushed it back a little bit to Tuesday, week 11, to make sure that you have an opportunity to do a draft if you'd like to, and also just in case you've got questions in the meantime. And that you can see here that the learning intention is around structures of persuasive essays as well as understanding persuasive techniques. Now, in our study of tomorrow when the war began, we'll be looking at some issues around ethics of war and wealth distribution and relationships and all those sorts of things. So for this essay, we're going to be using those as some starting points for your persuasive writing, okay? So you'll see here there's a whole range of topics. You only need to choose one of the areas and you'll be writing a persuasive essay about that. So I'm going to focus on this one today. Should Australia share its wealth with its neighbours? But you can choose any of the topics there. And if you've got a similar topic or another topic that you're just really passionate that you'd like to be able to write about, then I'm happy to negotiate as well. So you can talk to me in class or email me and we can have a look and a think about that. And as it says here, this is probably pretty obvious, but you need to follow the correct conventions of a persuasive writing piece, which is what we'll talk a little bit about today. And that you'll need to choose one side and state 2 or 3 reasons for your argument. I've put 2 or 3 there. That's your choice. Okay, you might find it easier to do 2 longer arguments, but personally, I'd actually find it to do 3 shorter arguments, and 3 is also a nice round number when it comes to putting your arguments together. So up to you. Happy to talk if you want to look at the pros and cons of different options. And that you'll be using teal paragraphs when you're doing this, but as we said before, you're actually always using teal when you're writing paragraphs. It's just what a paragraph structure is. And that you'll be using a range of persuasive techniques, which includes care frogs. And on the OneNote, there's a whole bunch of resources about that, and online there's a whole bunch of resources as well. But you might also be using techniques that aren't in care frogs. Okay, so and we've looked at some of those in class, and again, they're on the OneNote. And as always, accurate spelling and punctuation is really critical to your overall assessment. You can go through and have a look at this, but these are the key marking criteria for this assessment against the achievement standards. So now that we've had a look at the task that you're actually doing, I just want you to talk through the starting point for how you're going to go about doing this, okay? So as I said, I've chosen that one there, should Australia share its wealth with its neighbours? And what I'd like you to do, when you've chosen your topic, the next thing I'd like you to do is to restate it from the position that you will be taking. So for example, for this one here, I'd be arguing Australia should share its wealth with its neighbours. You might argue that it should not share its wealth with its neighbours, okay? And when you're doing persuasive writing, sometimes you'll do it from the perspective that you really believe, and other times you might do it from a perspective you don't believe, because you might find it sort of fun and interesting to write from somebody else's perspective, but that's up to you. But word it as your topic, because good persuasive writing should really have a clear goal in mind, not be, arguments for both sides, other than counter arguments, which you know about. So once you've reworded it, then that will now be your topic. Once you've done that, you're going to need to brainstorm a variety of arguments and then choose your best 3 supporting arguments. So you're going to brainstorm, there's a whole range of ways you could do this, but you're going to brainstorm a range of arguments that you believe would meet your topic. And so, for example, I've chosen down here. So I brainstorm a range of arguments. In fact, we brainstormed a bunch in class the other day. This is where these ideas have come from. And then we chosen 3 supporting arguments. So I chose here, very briefly, you'll see that if we share with our neighbours, that will be better for our allies, maybe developing our allies in the future. It might lead to better future trade opportunities. And that the third one there is maybe around a sense of ethical obligations. So even if we don't get something from it, then maybe we have an ethical obligation to share with countries that have less wealth, okay? Eventually, each of these supporting arguments, okay, which are basically will become your subtopics, which will form each paragraph, okay? So as you can see underneath here, that once you start to look at structuring your argument, you'll have 3 key subtopics, 2 or 3, depending on your choice. Then you'll have a paragraph about the allies, a paragraph about future trade opportunities, a paragraph about ethical obligations to support others in need. I didn't mention it here, but a correct persuasive structure will also have an introduction and conclusion. Okay, so we'll go into that in more detail, but at the moment, what I'm saying is you really need to focus on brainstorming your topic, choosing your topic, brainstorming your arguments, and then choosing the best 3, because that will actually take you a bit of time to do. I had to do a lot of work before I got to this stage, okay? So that's what you'll need to do, be it here or at home. Once you've got your 3 good examples or 3 best arguments, then you need to start to think about what are the points, the explanations you're going to make about those, okay? Because the arguments aren't self-evident. You need to explain why that is the case. So if you see here in number 3, I've kind of brainstormed out a bit of how I might go about doing this paragraph. So for example, I've said that there might be an ethical obligation to support others in need. Well then, one of my sub-points to my subtopic is that some of our neighbours have less wealth and therefore increased poverty. And that for me, that might be a really good spot to maybe talk about statistics or something like that. I don't even know what they are at the moment. I haven't researched anything, but that's probably a good spot where I might be able to use some statistics. So if you plan out like this, you can actually save yourself work because you can go and research for things that will contribute directly to what you're planning on writing. So I've said maybe one of the techniques I might use there is statistics. And then, and this is actually a really interesting one, for me, and that's something I personally do feel really strongly about, is that wealth or resources could support, better social health and medical benefits for people in need. Okay, so that would probably be one of my key arguments for why we should share resources, depending on what that looks like. And that perhaps then, as we were talking about anecdotes the other day, that could be a really good spot to tell an anecdote about someone that didn't have money, was in need, was in a really bad situation, but when they got resources, they were then able to better help their family. Okay, so again, I don't even know, haven't researched it yet, but straight away, I've got 1 paragraph there basically planned and 2 persuasive techniques, okay? And ultimately, when you're a really effective writer, things like this will come more naturally, but lots of students, myself included, if your people are looking to get into the high B and A grade, will actually go through and specifically plan, almost have a list of the sorts of techniques that they have looked at and make sure they plan to incorporate them across the essay. So straight away, I could already see that I've got 2 techniques there. If I had 2, ones for future trade and 2 for allies, I'd have 6 techniques, which when you look at the marking criteria, would really help with the range on the higher level. So that's really what we're doing at the moment. So just to reinforce, choose your question, restate it as a topic, okay? Then brainstorm, that'll be a bit of work, brainstorm and then choose your 3 supporting arguments around allies, future trade opportunities and ethical obligations, and then they will then form each paragraph. Following that, you will then use them to do your 3 things. And I'm aware I just touched my face, so I will be sanitizing afterwards. So we will do those 3 things. as well. So choose your best 3. They will become your paragraphs. In the next video, I'll expand and we'll look at topic sentences and all those sorts of things and look at a good example. This one here, underneath is actually a really, really, really good YouTube series. So you can click on this link. This file will be in your OneNote as well. This series, it goes for about 10, 12 minutes overall, but it's actually really, really good. Apologies about, it says persuasive writing for kids. All right, no, you're not kids. You're all young adults and awesome. But the information they have on there, persuasive writing, is really, really good quality. So I'd recommend that to anyone to have a look at. You know, I learned stuff watching it, so I think you would as well. So that's it for the moment. Take care, be nice to each other, be excellent to each other, as we say, and peace out.